Hello my friends all over the world. William Poloniak here again at Whole Health Foundation, and today I'm going to make one of my favorite juice formula. I'm using French sorrel, baby beets, and a few other ingredients. Let's look at all my ingredients. Here I have about 150 grams of turmeric, 150 grams of ginger, about 8 leaves from a collard plant, wild dandelion. Now you can't buy wild dandelion, you have to go for a walk and pick it. And of course my French sorrel, and I'm going to use 50% more carrots than I usually do. I'm using 15 pounds of carrots. So let's start making juice. Before I start making juice, I want to point out that I'm using the near zero blowback cutter and the front loading feed tube. And I'm using the new 6-blade near zero blowback cutter, and I have another one in here. I also have a 5-blade near zero blowback cutter, but we found the 6-blade is actually the ideal number of blades with over 110 teeth, very sharp teeth. So as usual, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with 3 ice cubes to cool down the cutter and the feed tube before I do my greens. And I'm going to start with dandelion. Just watch how well this does greens. Just like a hot knife through butter. That near zero blowback cutter not only shreds better, but does the shredding at 4 degrees less temperature. Next I'll put in some turmeric. And because greens are very fibrous, I'm going to put in 3 ice cubes. Rotate your bowl, more dandelion greens. Now I want to point out that because the near zero blowback cutter does such an excellent job, you're going to be tempted to put in more produce and more greens, but I advise you not to do that. Less greens is actually better and will shred better. Let's add more greens. Now I'm going to switch to my French sorrel. Sorrel. Here's the last of my greens, the last of my French sorrel. And next I'm going to switch to carrots. Now one thing I always do when I'm at the end of my greens is put 2 or 3 carrots through to push all the greens through, and then clean my grid and continue with carrots. So I'll do that now. Small carrots you can put 2 at a time, but reverse the big end to small ends. Now I can tell my motor's working hard, and that's because the grid needs cleaning, so I'll clean my grid on both sides. And the best way to clean your grid is to put your grid in the palm of your hand so you have a steady grip, and then wipe the pulp from your knife off on your glove finger and reassemble, and we'll continue with carrots. I want to point out with the front loading feed tube that not only can you see what's going on inside the feed tube, but it's ergonomically much more comfortable than pulling down. You're pushing forward. So let's continue. Now I want to point out a little tip. Let me turn this off so you can hear me better. I want to point out a little tip. Norman Walker, who is the father of juicing, suggested putting the large end of the carrot in first. And you might ask yourself, why? Well, the solution and the answer is very simple. If you have large carrots, you want to make sure it goes in the feed tube. With smaller carrots, it's not that important, but you get better shredding putting the large end in first, and also partly because there's always some pulp coming back up, and as it meets the smaller end, it'll be easier to push through. And when you're down to your last carrot, you can look in here, and often you can see not all the produce is shred, so I'm going to put in a couple of clumps of pulp, and I'm going to force that last plug through. Sometimes the plug is not visible, so it's a good idea to do this anyway. Now, because my bowl is very, very full, I'm going to be very careful mixing this. I want to get all the greens and the carrots mixed together. And I want to point out that whenever you have carrots in your mix, you do not need bamboo liners. You only use bamboo liners with greens only juice or fruit juice. Whenever there's carrots in your mix, the pulp will not stick to your cloth. Alright, let's unfold our cloths and then make some juice. As usual, I'm going to use my less work 6 cloth method that I'm going to demonstrate here. So 3 scoops into each cloth, fold it into thirds, and I'm going to press 2 cloths full of pulp at one time. So the first cloth, fold it, make a crease back here. Look at my folding technique. I'll pull that with my fingers and under for a very tight package. The tighter the better. Set that aside and continue. So when you're on your last cloth, after your first scoop or your second scoop, advance that all the way. Here's my less work 6 cloth method. This goes forward, this goes over, the spent cloths go on top, 2 new cloths in the press, centered left to right, centered front to back. Make any adjustments you need to. Notice how I can reach in there and do that. All the way back, back it off a little bit because we do not want that to go up too fast. Now, since I have a puddle of juice in my collection bowl, I'm going to take the spent pulp, crush it up, and put it in the puddle of juice to absorb that juice in the bowl. And we'll continue. I know that this looks effortless when I'm doing it, and you will become just as accomplished as you continue making juice. So I'm leaving the pulp in the cloth, and I'm going to put 2 scoops, not 3, on top of the spent pulp. Fold it into a tight package, advance that all the way. Looks like my bowl is full enough to fill some bottles. So this goes forward, that goes over. The spent cloths go on top. Now, to prevent this from dripping on my countertop, I'm going to set it back, but again, not a little bit, a lot. You want it to be so obvious that you won't forget. Now we'll fill some bottles. Now I'm filling this from the back side so the camera gets a good shot. And notice I'm leaving 10% for filtered or distilled water. And that's because for me, juice is too concentrated anyway. So I'm going to top it off with distilled water later. And let's make more juice. Now, because I have a puddle of juice in the tray, I'm going to very, very carefully hold this with my thumb. And as carefully as I can, pour that into the collection tray. And as I've mentioned before, the first time I did that, I got it all over my countertop. You have to do it very, very carefully. All right, this patty is getting pretty thick, so I'm going to put in 1 heaping spoonful of pulp, not 2. Okay, we'll back that off because it is right to the top. And we'll finish folding this, and then we'll fill more bottles. And there we have 10 bottles so far, so it looks like we got a large batch this time. And let's make more juice. Now, as you can see, I have 3 double packages of spent pulp, and I'm going to use a measuring beaker to measure how much more juice we can get using a Whole Health Foundation Premium Juicer. So I'm going to flatten that down to make sure we can get that in the tray. It's a tight fit, but we'll manage. Wiggle that in there. Now, this is very important at this stage to be in the center. Centered left to right. centered front to back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to push it all the way back, wait for juice flow, then back it off and wait for traction between these two claws full of pulp. And as soon as I get juice flow, I'm going to back this off. There we go. I'm going to back it off a little bit because we do not want that to go up too fast. As soon as I determine I have traction between the two cloths, I will advance it all the way. Now so far we've got almost 19 ounces of juice, and I'm not going to go any further because my container's full and I don't want it to overfill. So what I'm going to do, I'll set that back so it doesn't drip on my countertop, turn this off, and pour this into my container and fill more bottles. Now in this batch we got 13 bottles of juice and enough here for a taste test, and I'm going to top these off with water. Well, my friends, as you can see, I have 5, 10, 13 bottles of juice, and remember, more than one of these bottles was from pressing the already spent pulp using the Whole Health Foundation Premium Model Juicer. So we got probably about 10% more juice, plus enough for a taste test. So let's taste this. Well, here we have one of my favorite recipes, my friends, with French sorrel and dandelion, plus other ingredients, and about 50% more carrots. Let's give it a taste. Oh, that's delicious. I can taste the dandelion, and it's sweetened up considerably from the French sorrel. A delicious juice. I hope you like what you've seen so far, and if you do, please tell a friend. And if you'd like to call me, my phone number is 760-753-0321. My email address is developtrust@cox.net, and my webpage is wholehealthfound.com. See you in the next video.